Good morning, good morning, good morning. If you don't have it, go and grab yourself a pencil and some paper, because this week what we are doing is we are going to be looking at the ancient Maya again, and we're going to be looking at their number systems, and this is going to be one of my favourite lessons. So it's a bit of history, but also a bit of maths. But if maths isn't your thing, don't switch off, because it's lots and lots and lots of fun. And it's really, really interesting, and it's what makes the ancient Maya incredibly significant as a civilization. And we're going to look at why a little bit later on. So welcome to everybody I can see that's joining us, and everybody who is over in the chat. So hello to everyone watching on YouTube and over on catch up. Do feel free to join in as you're going. Now, as I've said, go and grab yourself a bit of a pencil and a bit of scrap paper because you might need it. But the first question I've got for you is, what does this mean? What does it mean? What does it actually mean? Now you're probably thinking, come on, Chrissy, that's a bit simple, that's a bit easy. What are you on about? What does it mean? So, answers coming in. Yes, it's the number 2. What does it actually mean? Now, you may have these, depends on what sort of maths you follow at home, but this is what it means. I'm going to take this off. It means this, doesn't it? It means I have 2 of something. But actually, let's really think about this. That's just a symbol, isn't it? It doesn't mean anything. We know it means 2, that I've got one of something, and then I've got another one. I've got 2. That sounds really, 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 really random. But how do we know that means 2? Because we've just learned it's just a symbol, isn't it? If we'd grown up and I had done a scribble on the page and said to my young people at home, that means 2, then we'd have learned that, wouldn't we? But it's just a symbol. It's just a symbol. So what does this mean? It's a bit easier now. Absolutely, you probably hear me down underneath my camera. It's 7, but it's just a squiggle on a page. We know that means in real life that you have that amount of blocks, or that you have that amount of sweets, or you have that amount of, I don't know, apples. But it means 7. Okay, so that's definitely what 7 means. Now, what about this? What does this mean? Put those back. What does this mean? It means I have nothing. It means I have 0. So we call that symbol 0. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Now, what about this one? What does this mean? This is harder, isn't it? Or is it proper easy? So you're right, this is 36. But how do we know it's 36? So this means that we have, you might have these at home, it means we have 3 lots of 10, because that's what that 3 means. We have 3 lots of 10, and that we have 6 ones. And together, we have 36. So what about this? I don't know if I've got enough. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I do. 6, 7. Put some of the little ones down. 1, 2. So this one, as you know, means 74, which means that we have 7 lots of 10 and that we have 4 ones. Now, you might be going, for goodness sake, Chrissy, why are we doing this? This isn't anything to do with the ancient Maya. But it's incredibly important because it's our number system. This is how we represent number. And the Maya did it completely different. And so in order to understand how the Maya did it, you need to understand how we do it. And it will become clear in a minute. So if we had an alien and we had to explain to an alien our number system, how would we do it? What would we say to them? So I'm going to give you a few seconds to think about it. What would we say to them? Because to me, if I didn't know anything about number and I didn't know anything about maths, that just looks like a pattern. So it clearly says 36, which I'm sure you all are very, very well aware of, that is the number 36. But how would I explain our number system to an alien? Because they just say, that looks like a picture, that just looks like some squiggles. So how would we say it? So yeah, lots of great ideas starting to come in about how it represents, so different squiggles or different patterns represent different numbers. So you might say that actually we have 9 symbols. So we do have 9 symbols, and those 9 symbols represent actual amounts in real life. So the 9 symbols, which I'm sure is no surprise to you, are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And they're all just symbols. And we can make any number in the world just using those symbols in particular orders. The other thing you might say is that we write our number in columns, and that each column means something different. So this, you know, is 356. So we write our numbers in specific columns. So we start on the right-hand side with our ones, and then the next column is our tens, and then the next column is our hundreds, and our next column is our thousands, and so on. So we know this is, we've got 3 lots of 100, 5 lots of 10, and 6 ones, and together that makes 356. So you might tell them that we write our numbers in columns, and also that we write our numbers from right to left. So we start with the ones, and then our tens, and then our hundreds. Now I know when we're writing 356, we write from left to right, but actually in terms of from a mathematical perspective, the numbers are going, we're adding on each time, aren't we? So it's technically right to left, because it's how many ones you've got, tens you've got, hundreds you've got. So if you do a sum, so if you do, I don't know, 356 add 248, you actually work the ones out first, don't you? So we always work out from right to left. Now you've got that in your head. Now we're going to look at the Mayan number system. And the reason that I've just spent 7.5 minutes talking about things that you already know is because it's important to get it in your head, because the Mayan number system is very, very different, and it can get a little bit confusing because it's completely different. But now you know very much our system, and that's all fresh in your mind, you will find it easier. Now the first thing to say is what makes the Maya so significant is they were one of the first civilizations to have a way of writing 0. So why is having a way of writing 0 so important? Why do we need to have 0? Why do we have to need a way to represent 0? Because if we don't have anything, why is it important? Why is it important to have a way of writing 0? Is it important? Some of you might think it's not important. Why is it important? Because this is one of the reasons that the Maya are so significant. They are one of the first civilizations to come up with the concept of 0. Shall I tell you? Waiting for the chat to catch up. Well, 0 is what makes the Maya have were able to develop such a complex number and counting system. It was an incredibly advanced system, and they were one of only 2 cultures in the world to develop the concept of 0. And they did it far, far before anyone over in Europe. Now, the reasons behind it is because we need 0 to act as a placeholder when you are moving on from large numbers. So, for example, if you didn't have 0, how would you write 200? Because you need a 0 to say you've got no ones, and a 0 to say you've got no tens, but you need the 2 to say you've got 2 lots of hundreds. If you didn't have zeros, it would be 2. And we know that there's an awful lot of difference. If I said to you, would you like 2 sweets or would you like 200 sweets? There is a significant difference between 2 and 200. And if we didn't have zeros, then unfortunately it would be 2, not 200. So you would never be able to write big numbers. The other thing to say is, how would you, I've realised I spelled right wrong. I've spelled it as the wrong right. But how would you write 203? Mistake from me. It should be WRITE. But how would you write 203 if you didn't have a 0? Because 203 means you have 3 1s, no 10s, and 2 hundreds. But if you didn't have a 0, it wouldn't be 203, it would just be 23. And again, there's a marked difference between 23 and 203. So you can see that if you want to write more complicated numbers, you have to have a 0. You have to have a 0 as a placeholder. And nobody really had it apart from these two cultures, and the Maya were one of them. And so if you don't have 0, you can't work with complex numbers and counting, and that's what made them significant. So how did they do it? Well, really, really simple, actually. They use symbols to represent their numbers. So what symbols can you see here? You can see 3 different symbols, okay? So you can see one on the left, which is a shell, and then you can see a dot, and then you can see a bar. So similar to if you've got a base 10, similar idea. Here's a bar. Here's a dot. I don't have a shell, but they mean different things. They mean completely different things, but they use these symbols. So the symbols that they used were shells, pebbles, and sticks. So that's the only 3 symbols. So whereas we've got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, the Maya just have 3. They have a stone or a pebble, they have a stick, and they have a shell. And that's it. And with those three symbols, you can produce whatever number that you want. Okay. So I'm going to work out using pebbles, sticks, and shells. So we've got a stick and 2 pebbles, 2 sticks and a pebble, 3 sticks and 3 pebbles. So I've told you what they mean. So a stick and 2 pebbles means 7. 2 sticks and a pebble means 11. 3 sticks and 3 pebbles means 18. So what do you think those different things mean? What's a pebble worth? What's a stick worth? What do we think? What's a pebble worth? What's a stick worth? Lots of you are working it out. If you've worked it out, therefore, you should be able to work out what's a shell. Right. So it looks like a pebble is worth 1, and it looks like a stick is worth 5, because you can see we've got 1 stick and 2 pebbles, so 5, 6, 7, and then 2 sticks would be 10 plus 1 pebble is 11, and then 3 sticks would be 15 plus 3 pebbles is 18. So what it means is, in the Maya number system, 1 stick is 5, 1 pebble is 1, and that makes the shell, well done to those of you who've got it, 0. So you have 1 stick, you have 1 pebble, you have a shell. That's all, and you can make any number from it. So you did figure it out. So we have a stick, which is worth 5, a pebble, which is worth 1, and a shell, which is worth 0. But what have you learned about the way the numbers are written? Because they're written very, very differently. So they only need 3 symbols, whereas we obviously use all from 0 to 9. So we use far more symbols. They just need those 3. But what have you learned about the way they are written? I'm going to move back to the previous slide. How are they written? They're written very differently. Absolutely. They're written one on top of the other. So whereas we go right to left when we write our numbers, they are going vertically. So it's different. So they only have 3 symbols, stick 5, pebble 1, shell nothing, and they write vertically. Okay, they write vertically. So you can see it here. So 1 pebble, 2 pebbles, 3 pebbles, 4 pebbles, 5 a stick, 6 is a stick and a pebble, and so on, until you get to 19, and then 19 is 3 sticks and 4 pebbles. So you've got 15 in sticks and 4 in pebbles, and that makes 19. So I'm just going to turn my camera off so you can see it in a little bit more detail, but this is all the numbers up to 19. And then when you get to 20 onwards, the mayor thought, oh, it's getting a bit complicated. We've got an awful lot of sticks. We've got an awful lot of pebbles. So then they did something different. Okay, but I hope you're all with me. Stick is 5, pebble is 1, shell is 0. But going above 20 could get a bit tricky. So what could you do? How could you do it differently? It's tricky, isn't it? There's lots of different ideas. You could keep adding more and more and more sticks. But actually, if you don't have a significant amount of sticks and you want to write a super huge number, that might get a little bit tricky. Do you remember we talked about the fact that we have ones, tens, hundreds? Well, the mayor had something a little bit different. They wrote vertically, but they decided, and this is where the shell and the 0 comes into account, they decided, can you see there's 2 boxes? So at the bottom box, we've got 0, and then in the box above they decided once you've got past 19 you can't keep adding sticks because it's getting too complicated. So what we'll do is we'll have up to 19 in one box, and then we'll make a second box, and if you put a pebble in the second box, that's going to mean 20. And this is where it starts to get a little bit tricky because we work in tens. So we move to the next column when we get to 10. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 as ones. And then as soon as we get to 10, we move to the next column and you have one set of 10 and 0 ones. And the reason that they think that we do our maths like that is because we have 10 fingers and thumbs. But the Maya have it differently. They use base 20. And that's because they think that we have 10 fingers and thumbs, but we also have 10 toes. And so if you're counting as in Maya, you could use your fingers and you could use your toes. So they work on a base 20 system. So as soon as you get to 19 in the bottom, then you move to the next box. And if you have 1 pebble in the second box, that means 20. And also you've got 0 in the bottom box, which means you've got no ones. Okay, so what would 21 be? So 21 would be this, wouldn't it? Because you've got 1 set of 20 in the top box and 1 1. So 21 would be exactly that. You would put your pebble, 1 pebble above another pebble, and that would be 21, because it would say you've got 1 lot of 20 and 1 1. So that's 21. Does that make sense? So that's how the Maya system worked. That they go vertically and that they work in base 20. They're working in multiples. So if you get to 19 in the bottom and then you move up, anything above 20, you're working at the top. Okay. So that is how the system worked. So let's work it out. So we know that the top box, each pebble is worth 20. In the bottom box, each pebble is worth 1, and each stick is worth, you remember, 5. So can you work out what this number is? Great. So So should we go through it? Don't worry if you're confused. It is a bit tricky. As we go through it, it will definitely click into place. So let's work out the bottom box. So we have one stick, and that stick is worth 5. And then we have 3 pebbles. So we have 5, 6, 7, 8. So in the bottom box, we have 8. And then we know the box above, each pebble is worth 20. So if we've got 2 lots of 20, then in the top box, we have 40. So the top box is 40, 2 lots of 20. And then the bottom box, we've got 5, 6, 7, 8. So to work out this number, you have to do 40, add 8, which is 48. So if you have that, if you lay that out on the floor in sticks and pebbles, that means 48. Let's go for another one. What about this one? So work out the bottom box first, then work out the top box, and then add them together. Use your piece of paper and your pencil if you've got it. Right, let's look at the bottom. So at the bottom we've got 3 sticks. So we know a stick is worth 5. So we've got 5, 10, 15, and then we've got 3 pebbles. So 15, 16, 17, 18. So the bottom is worth 18. The box above each pebble, remember, is worth 20. So we've got 20. And then we've got another 20 because we've got 2 pebbles, which makes 40. 40 add 18 is 58. So if you had 3 sticks and 3 pebbles, followed by 2 pebbles on the next level, that means you have 58. Well done for those of you getting it right. Now, I'm being mean now. What happens if you've got a stick in the second box? So we know a stick at the bottom is worth 5, and we know a pebble in the top box is worth 20. So what's a stick in the top box going to be worth? Oh, I'm being mean now. Have a go. Don't worry if you get it wrong. If you want to pause, if you think it's going too fast, you can definitely pause it. It's pause, even if you're live, you can pause it. Some of you, I think, might have got it. So let's work the bottom one out, because that's one stick. So that's 5. And then we've got 6, 7. So the bottom box is 7. We got all that right? Give yourself a clap if you have. The top box, we have a stick. Now we know a stick in the bottom is worth 5. But in the top, a stick is worth 5 lots of 20. Okay, 5 lots of 20. So you have 5 lots of 20 plus the 3 pebbles, which makes 5, 6, 7, 8. So you actually have 8 lots of 20. Okay, which is 160. And then you add your 7 at the bottom. Does that make sense? So the second box, the box above, is how many lots of 20 you've got. So you still count it, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that means you've got 8 lots of 20, which is 160. And then you add your 7. Okay. So what happens then if you've got 2 sticks up at the top? What do you think that means? Yes, you'd have 10 lots of 20. Awesome. So let's work out the bottom. We've got 5, 10, 15. So we've got 3 sticks. 16, 17, 18, because you've got 3 pebbles. So that's 18. The box above, we're working in 20s. So we know that each bar is 5 lots of 20. So in that box, a pebble is 1 lot of 20. A bar, 5 lots of 20. Which basically makes each bar worth 100. So you don't need to do the maths every time. You know that every bar in the second box is worth 100. So if you've got 2 bars, it's worth 200. So in the second box, 1 pebble is 20, 1 bar is 100. So that means in the top box, we have 200. Add 18 is 218. So we know that 3 sticks and 3 pebbles at the bottom, or 3 bars and 3 pebbles at the bottom is 18. 2 bars in the next one is 200. 218 is 218. So that's how you make 218. So what do you think about this one? So remember, in the bottom, each bar is worth 5. Each pebble is worth 1. In the top, each bar is worth 100. Each pebble is worth 20. Really don't worry if you think, I can't do it. You can pause, or you can take a look at it again at the end of this session. It took me quite a lot of time to get to grips with this number system. So please be gentle with yourself if you're finding it tricky. Right, so let's go for the bottom. We know these are 5. So if you're struggling, you can just do the bottom one. We've got 5. We've got 5, 10, 15. We've got 3 pebbles, 16, 17, 18. So we know the bottom is 18. Now at the top, we've got 3 sticks, and we know each stick is worth 100. So we definitely have 3 sticks, so that's 300, plus a pebble, or a dot, which is 320. Okay, then you need to remember to add them all together. So 320 add 18 is 338. So as you can see, it can get more and more complex. So let's have a little look. Can you do this maths problem? So we've got 3 sticks and 3 dots, or 3 pebbles, add 1 stick and 1 pebble. So what do you think that might be? So yeah, the first one is 18, 3 sticks and 3 pebbles, plus 1 stick and a pebble, which is 6. So you should have got 24. Now, if you're really into maths, what happens when you get 4 bars and 4 pebbles, or 4 dots in the 20s column? Because then you need to move to the next thing. So if you're going to move to the next box, what's a pebble going to be worth then? What's a stick going to be worth then? So if you go up to the 3rd column, you can work it out, because once you've got your 4 bars and your 4 dots, or your 4 pebbles in the second box, it's the same. In the bottom box, you can't have more than 4 bars and 4 pebbles, because that's 19. Then you move to 20. What happens in the 20s column when you have 4 bars and 4 dots? What's the next column worth? Because obviously they go up vertically. That's a little challenge for those of you that really enjoy maths. Go and look it up. But let's think, why is this Mayan number system significant? Why is it significant? Well, I hope what you have understood is how phenomenally complex, how easy it is, as in it's 3 things that you need, not the 10 symbols that we've got, but also the fact that you can write extremely complex sums. And so it's significant for a lot of reasons. The first reason is because it enabled the Maya to make and record accurate measurements. So it enabled them to make incredibly accurate calendars, because they were able to create really complex, accurate measurements. They could measure things because they had a way of representing those measurements. The other thing is it enabled the Maya to create records of astronomical movements and be able to chart the stars, because again, you could measure it because you have a way of showing the measurement with your sticks and your stones and your shells. The other thing is that historians think that being able to record accurately, accurate measurements, probably contributed to their ability to design and build the incredible buildings that we saw back in lesson 1. And so if they didn't have a way of accurately measuring and accurately recording measurements, it's unlikely some historians think that they could have built the buildings that they did. The use of the 0 is incredibly significant because you cannot make more complex numbers if you don't have it as a placeholder. And so if you can't say you've got 0 20s or 0 1s or 0 200s or whatever, then you can't make more numbers, more complex numbers. You can only really go above 9 in our system before you need a 0. So if you think about the Maya, having that 0, one of the first civilizations to have it, makes it incredibly significant. And also many historians argue that only having 3 symbols makes mathematical equations far easier to solve. So actually you could argue that it's incredibly clever, like seriously clever. And an example is go compare it to the Roman numeral system, how complicated that is with regards to all those letters and the order that you put them in and the order that you change the letters in. It has a massive effect on basically what it is and what number it is. And so it's far easier if you've just got a pebble, a stick and a stone. It just uses 3 symbols, which is incredible. So have a little think why you think the Mayan number system was significant, what you think the main reason that made it so incredible and so significant in history. You can write it in the chat or you can have a little chat about it at home, but something for you to think about as we finish this session. And go and have a practice, even if that was a bit and it was a bit tricky. Don't worry, in the pack there's lots of activities where you can go and practice the Mayan number system, and you can go have a go outside. Go and get yourself a pebble, a stick, and some shells, or maybe use leaves if you don't have shells. Could you go and do some art in the wild? Go and do some art outside, some numbers outside, and make some Maya number art by making some really cool maths sums and equations outside at the park or in your garden. But yeah, go and have fun with it. And I'll see you next week for more sessions on the Maya. Have a lovely week and I'll see you soon.